Under ordinary circumstances, I would not expect the Rochester City Council to have a foreign policy. However, given the extraordinary disconnect between the will of the people and the actions of our federal officials, I believe it's necessary for you as the representatives of those who live in this city to convey to those officials the depth and urgency of concern regarding this issue. I'm speaking to you not only as a resident of Rochester, but as a leader of the Jewish community who speaks for the growing majority of American Jews supporting a ceasefire. I realize that you may be hearing from local Jewish institutional leaders opposing the resolution in support of a ceasefire. While they may claim to speak for the Jewish community, Jews have no centralized authority or body that is actually empowered to do so. Sadly, the self-appointed leadership is increasingly disconnected from the views of the majority of American Jews who are critical of the actions of the Israeli government. I know that a related concern is that supporting a ceasefire is anti-Semitic. There are certainly those who conflate any criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. However, most American Jews understand that any government, including our own, is a valid subject of criticism. I'm also speaking as a member of Rabbis for Ceasefire, a global movement of Jewish spiritual leaders who believe our deepest Jewish values concerning the sanctity of human life, the imperative to seek peace, and the call to justice are at stake in the continued destruction of Gaza and its people. At this moment of great moral reckoning, we're speaking out to fulfill the most sacred obligation in Jewish tradition, pikuach nefesh, saving a life. The call for ceasefire is a call for life, for Israelis and Palestinians, and one I hope all of you will share. I also want to ask, please don't cheer or clap.
My name is Joshua Dubler, and I worked with Council Members Gruber and Martin on this resolution, which I ardently support, the ceasefire resolution. Councilmember Martin's resolution is the product of extensive deliberation. Indeed, it was in the spirit of compromise that we avoided using two crucial words which make clear the stakes and urgency of this moment. These words are apartheid and genocide. October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. As affirmed by Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, and the UN Special Reporter, Israel's ongoing militarized control over the West Bank and Gaza makes it an apartheid state. Without the justice of ending the occupation, there can be no real peace. Apartheid answers the question, why this? Genocide answers the question, why now? In January, the International Court of Justice ruled overwhelmingly that Israel's incursion into Gaza plausibly constitutes genocide. As a signatory to the Genocide Convention, the U.S. is therefore mandated to ensure that it is not complicit with genocidal acts. That is why we must act. Palestinians are being slaughtered, and our tax dollars are funding it. With Washington asleep at the wheel, it falls to us to make the slaughter stop. A ceasefire resolution is the most effective vehicle for executing our civic, legal, and moral obligation. As a Jewish Rochesterian, I feel additionally called to stand in emphatic support of this resolution and to I'm being shamed from the floor. And to refute those who might paint a campaign for liberation as somehow anti-Jewish. The opposite is true. The best of the Jewish tradition and the clarion call of Jewish history insists on the freedom of all people. This is the Judaism of Exodus.
Please allow me to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give the gentleman another 15 seconds, please. Please allow him to conclude.
This is the Judaism of Exodus, the Judaism that sent freedom riders down south and placed Heschel at King's Shoulder on Edmund Pettus Bridge. And this is the Judaism that... Oh, sorry. Again? Okay. Hello? Check? Okay. Thank you. The best of the Jewish tradition and the clarion call of Jewish history insists on the freedom of all people. This is the Judaism of Exodus, the Judaism that sent freedom riders down south and placed Heschel at King's Shoulder on Edmund Pettus Bridge. And this is the Judaism that today cries out, let Gaza live, free Palestine.
To you tonight on the ceasefire resolution. You must sign this resolution. But I no longer wish to appeal to your empathy because that hasn't worked many times. When we've talked about police budgets, we have to mobilize for the bid for you to oppose it. When it comes to our kids who live here, and now this ceasefire resolution, we have asked you so many times to stand against violence, specifically state violence. So we'll talk business instead. Your voter base is overwhelmingly asking you to call for a ceasefire to sign this resolution. Not everyone here tonight is part of your voter base, okay? So pay attention to who did speak to you because we had to prove that we live here. And at this point, we are not going to stand by and let you watch as this genocide happens and say nothing. Your donations from the Locust Club, your donations from settler colonial organizations will not save you. We will show up. We are voting. We're voting in the general election. Biden should be scared, and anyone who is quiet about this, if this does not pass unanimously, we're after your seats. Period. Period. Mitch, FoodLink, you care about food security, right? There are children starving, a lot of them. How can you stand by and watch this knowing families and children are starving? The same way that you all accepted, so many of you accepted money from corrupt organizations, and you voted against your constituents over and over again, our well-being. I think it's worth mentioning after the way that I was treated in the back, and very funny of security to go after people, you know, heckling a little bit. My things were rummaged through. I was treated like garbage back there. But I am matrilineally Jewish, by the way. My great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. We are not free until every Palestinian is free. And we will know who our oppressors are.
A few months ago, I watched video footage of an interview with my relative where he told the story of his survival of the Holocaust, including his time in Dachau concentration camp. He talked about fighting for food. He talked about losing all thoughts of the future beyond how to survive to the end of each night. At the end of the interview footage, he closed with a warning that we are not far from history repeating itself. I stand before you today urging you to pass a ceasefire resolution, not in spite of my Jewishness, but because of it. Every day I see photos and videos of people starving to death in Gaza. Tiny ribs almost protrude from children's skin, bringing to mind images of the frail bodies of my own people on their way to mass death. I see piles of blood-stained Palestinian shoes and recall the piles of shoes preserved in Holocaust museums. The lesson of the Holocaust is not that Jews are uniquely oppressed and must therefore isolate themselves into an ethno-state which claims a monopoly on violence. The lesson of the Holocaust, which took many more lives than just Jewish ones, is that all it takes to commit a genocide is for comfortable people to look away. The lesson is that dehumanizing and segregationist practices and policies, combined with self-victimizing rhetoric, lead to the excusal of organized mass killing when people like you look away. As Jews, we know what ethnic cleansing looks like, and when we say never again, we must mean never again for anyone. I refuse to have my Jewishness synonymized with genocide, either as victim or perpetrator. I refuse to have my Jewishness turned into a weapon with Palestinians on the other end of the barrel. City council members, you have an opportunity to commit yourself to the side of humanity. You have the opportunity to not look away. Vote yes on the ceasefire resolution or be left behind by the tide of history wishing that you did.
My name is Zora Gusso. I'm a lifelong city resident, and I am a proud Jewish person who is here today to encourage you to vote in favor of the ceasefire resolution. I think that this resolution embodies a lot of the Jewish values that I hold most dear in my own heart, in line with Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, and
Please stop. Let's pause for a moment. Please let every speaker speak uninterrupted, please. We'll give another 5 seconds and then we'll start the timer again. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel very strongly as a Jewish person that it is my duty to speak out, and it is my duty to ask my representatives to speak out on my behalf. I do believe that a ceasefire resolution can have positive effects, material effects on the situation in Gaza right now, and I think that it is urgent that we pass this resolution, that we advocate for a ceasefire, that we advocate for an end to military aid to Israel, because it is not just, it is not a good use of our money, and we need to be in the spirit of Rochester's long history of being against apartheid, like once again standing up and for what's right. And it is not anti-Semitic to critique Israel. It is not anti-Semitic to support Palestinian people. And Israel is not what is keeping Jews in America safe. I will keep myself safe, and my community will keep me safe. And my community, and the people around me in this city, believe in a free Palestine. So I appreciate all of the time and energy that council members have put into this resolution. And I appreciate the language that is there, that is strong and important, and I really hope that you will vote for this. Thank you so much. I will see the rest of my time.
As a Rochester resident and a Jewish American, I urge the Rochester City Council to pass Resolution MR 1024 in favor of an immediate ceasefire in the Middle East. I have always been a strong supporter of Israel. I condemn the inexcusable attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7th. I affirm Israel's right to retaliate against Hamas and dismantle its military capability. I recognize that Hamas's embedding itself among Gaza's citizenry means Israel's response will inevitably cause a tragic loss of innocent life and suffering. But enough is enough. I can't say exactly when Israel crossed the line, but it is now clearly carrying out a disproportionate level of death and destruction in Gaza. If an Israeli leader proposed to eliminate Gaza by killing every last Palestinian and destroying every building in Gaza, such a proposition would rightly receive universal condemnation. Sadly, Israel has moved tragically far in that direction and continues farther every day. Israel needs to cease its military campaign, facilitate humanitarian aid, affirm support of a two-state solution, and not undermine such a solution as Netanyahu often has done in the past, release political prisoners, improve its human rights record at home, and more. Hamas needs to cease its bombing of Israel, cease all other military activity, release all hostages, renounce its goal of eliminating Israel, accept a two-state solution, accept new civilian Palestinian leadership committed to a peaceful resolution, and more. The U.S. and other nations need to arbitrate the process and apply carrots and sticks to encourage both sides to work out an effective, just, long-term solution. If Israel remains intractable, the U.S. should cease military aid.